So, good morning student. This is my second video on your semi-solid dosage form. Today we are going to discuss the penetration of your semi-solid dosage form inside through your skin. म्हणजे penetration जे आहे ते कोणत्या mechanism होतं ते आपण discuss करणार आहोत. There is a three mechanism follow the penetration of your drug. That is, number one is intracellular transport. In this diagram you can show this is your intracellular transport. Second one is transcellular transport, or for transcellular transport there is a transcellular route. This is shown in your diagram. And this is your third is follicular transport. With the help of your hair follicles was present on your skin. With the help of this hair follicle they can be penetrate your drug to reaches your dermis and reaches to your systemic circulation. And this is your stratum corneum layer, and it containing the layers of your stratum corneum. त्यानंतर आपण बघूया penetration of drug through the skin by various pathways depending upon the physiochemical properties of drug. That is depend upon your physicochemical properties of your drug. Both the lipophilic and hydrophilic drugs are observed from the different route. The route of administration, or if your drug having the lipophilic or if your drug having the hydrophilic, they can be observed or they can be penetrated with your skin by different mechanism. The penetration of drug through the skin inward, the diffusion through the interaction epidermis through the skin appendages, that is nothing but hair follicle and sweat gland. The penetration of your drug will be takes place or inward through a diffusion process, that you know. Through a diffusion take place at your epidermis layer, and with the help of the at the stage of hair follicle and sweat gland, then that side it can be get diffuse or get penetrate. These skin appendages from shed pathway through this intact epidermis occupying only 0.1% total human skin, and scent pathway they follow the scent pathway which containing occupy the only follicle and your sweat gland containing only 0.1% of your total skin. So penetration of this route will be lesser as compared to your other mechanism. Then we will discuss epidermal route or across the intact stratum corneum. Epidermal route. Transcellular, intracellular route. There is a transcellular pathway, means transport of molecule across the epithelial cellular membrane. They are across your epithelial cell. Because of across of epithelial cell leads to there is a penetration. These include passive transport of molecule. There is a passive transport. You are not need to apply the force, or you are not applied to the your temperature, or this is the active transport was not be take place in this mechanism. Active transport of ionic and polar compound are endocytosis and transcytosis. Endocytosis, when you are applying a force, or when you are applying the force, that is your diffusion will be takes place for the formula. If your drug containing the ionic or polar compound, that you have to follow the endocytosis or transcytosis. Endocytosis means it come in contact with go inside into the cell, and they form a hopule, or they form a pocket-like structure inside your cell. And transcytosis, there is a transport of your molecule from one side to the another side. It is called as a transcytosis, and this mechanism was observed in your biological. This is observed. This mechanism takes place at your when we are applying or when we are doing the active transport for the ionic and polar compound. Under normal conditions, the transcellular route is not considered the preferred way. Dermal invasion, their reason being is very low permeability through the keratinocyte. It has a condition that the transcellular route, this is not the suitable or preferable route for the dermal invasion penetration for the drug, because it has a low permeability was observed in the keratinocyte. Keratinocyte is nothing but outer layer of your epidermis. Then add this obligation to partition several times from the more hydrophilic cornocyte into the lipid intracellular layer in stratum corneum and vice versa. The intracellular pathway can be gained and important when penetrate in answering used, and the transcellular pathway can be achieved by applying or by addition of your penetration enhancer. Example is urea, which increase the permeability of keratinocyte by altering the keratin structure, and the mechanism of action of your urea when you are adding, they are alter the structure of your keratinocyte, leads to the there is altering the keratin structure of your skin, leads to the achieve the higher penetration of your drug will be take place. Then next is paracellular or intercellular route. In paracellular route, drug molecule transport around or between the cell. They are transport your molecule or transfer your drug between or around your cell. The tight junction or similar situation exists between the cell. A tight junction or similar situation will be exist or take a consideration in the cell. The principal pathway taken by the permeate is decided mainly by the partition coefficient, that is depend upon your partition coefficient. Partition coefficient means amount of drug or amount of solute present in your two immiscible liquid. There is a concentration of drug present in your immiscible liquid, we call it as a partition coefficient. Hydrophilic drug partition preferably into the intracellular domain, where lipophilic permeate OW block to traverse the stratum corneum via intracellular route. Hydrophilic partition preferably into the intracellular domain. Hydrophilic drugs are preferably in the intracellular route, they are be penetrate. While lipophilic penetrate OW block to transfer the stratum corneum intracellular route, and but they are be following if you are preparing the OW types of emulsion, that will be the penetrate into your skin. Then transfollicular shunt pathway along the skin appendages. These are the use of this called as a transfollicular or shunt pathway. We call as a shunt pathway or along with your skin appendages, that is nothing but your sweat gland and hairs. Penetration of drug through the skin appendages route compromise transfer of eccrine sweat gland, apocrine sweat gland, hair follicle with their association of sebaceous gland. These are the gland which are help to this gland. With the help of this gland, they can be penetrated. Eccrine gland is present in your palm and sole. Sweat gland, apocrine gland is present in your ear. Sweat gland is present on your skin, and follicular hair follicles, that are the holes are present on your hairs, that can be penetrate your drug. These routes circumvent penetration through the stratum corneum and therefore known as a shunt route. It has a dominant property over the your other route. That's why we call as a shunt pathway. Transfollicular route is considered to be a minor important because relatively small area. It occupies the smaller area. That's why we are applying the or following or considering the this route. It will the having the minimum amount of your surface area you can be take into the consideration. Then skin absorption pathway. There is a skin absorption pathway. How to absorption would be takes place at your skin. Drug penetration through skin may involve following steps. Dissolution within the release from the formulation. Firstly, they are dissolved and relieve the your drug formulation. Partition into the outermost layer of the skin, stratum corneum. They are dividing your drug or preparation into your small parts and get into the stratum corneum. Diffusion through the stratum corneum, and there is a diffusion process was takes place at your stratum corneum level. Partitioning from the stratum corneum into the aqueous viable epidermis, and the partition will be takes place as stratum corneum leads to the aqueous viable epidermis. Diffusion through the viable epidermis and into the upper dermis, and there is a diffusion will be takes place at the epidermis, and there is a goes and reaches to the your upper dermis. Uptake into the local capillary network and eventually the systemic circulation. And uptake of take place your local capillary network and eventually they are reaches to the your circular. There is a reaches to the your systemic circulation. Then diffusion of compound across the membrane is described by Fick's law, or the diffusion process what takes place by the your semi-solid dosage form described by first Fick's law. We state that flux rate transfer per unit area. There is a rate of transfer of your semi-solid dosage form at particular per unit area of compound, that is mass upon centimeter square per second. at given time and position is proportional to the differential concentration changes dc over of differential distance dx, that is concentration gradient. Concentration gradient is nothing but there is a concentration present on outside the cell and inside the cell of your same molecule. If your molecule having concentration 5 at the outside and 7 at your inside, the difference between these, there is a 5 minus 2, there is a 2 is your is 2, that is equal to your concentration gradient. This is mathematically they are expressing J is equal to minus D into dc by dx. This Fick's law is considered, or Fick's law explain that there is a, you have to decrease the distance. If you are decreasing the distance, there is a increase your diffusion. Negative sign indicate the net flux is the direction of decreasing thermodynamical activity, which can be often represented by concentration. If you are changing your thermodynamical activity, applying the pressure, temperature, leads to the activity will be decreased or increased. That's why they are putting the negative D sign for the putting the formulation, putting the mathematical equation. Fick's second law describes the concentration within the membrane is derived by combining the differential mass balance in membrane with Fick's law, and when considering the skin, assume that the compound does not bind. Second law describes that when there is a condition, assume that there is a compound is not bind with your stratum corneum or your skin. The compound is not metabolized and diffusion coefficient does not vary with the position or composition. If there is a drugs is not metabolized, the diffusion coefficient does not vary. There is no difference between your diffusion coefficient will not be vary or will not be changes. There is no difference was found in your diffusion coefficient. So this equation they can be explained dc by dt is equal to dt square c upon dx square. These are the mathematical expression says that this is the diffusion will not be altered. Fick's first law can be applied to describe the diffusion process in the individual layer of skin which are treated as a pseudo-homogeneous layer. For membrane of thickness H is a flux and steady state JSS is given by. This is the Fick's first law. Also has showed that there is if we are there taking the consideration of your thickness, there is what will be the equation. There is a D in bracket C1 minus C2 upon H, where C1 and C2 are the concentration of chemical in the membrane at the two phases. When there is a concentration difference between your two phases. X E is equal to that is X is equal to 0 and X is equal to H. When used to describe the heterogeneous membrane like the stratum corneum, D is effective diffusion coefficient. Where is D is your effective drug concentration or diffusion coefficient. Take a consideration, and thickness of it means that second law or first law, it law says that there is a decrease in your thickness. It leads to the increase in your drug penetration. If you are decrease your thickness of your layer, it means that there is a achieve or more penetration will be, diffusion will be achieved. This is the learning of this equation or learning of this Fick's law. The factor influencing the dermal penetration of drug. Which are the factor influence or affect for the dermal penetration? Skin specific factor. त्यानंतर बघूया आपण site of application. There is a site of application where you have to apply or where your semi-solid dosage you have to apply. Thickness of skin, nature of stratum corneum and density of appendages vary site to site. These are the conditions are vary from site to site. This factor affect significantly penetration and this factor is affect on your penetration. When semi-solid formulation applied on various sites of body, study revealed that skin penetration as indicated by amount of chemical in stratum corneum was ranked as follows. There is a R lesser than abdomen, lesser than post-auricular and lesser than forehead. These are the sites where you can be observe the penetration. High penetration was found at R and low penetration was found at your forehead. देन इज अ रेस म्हणजे आपण काय म्हणतो वर्ण. देर इज अ वर्ण. स्टडी रिपोर्टेड दॅट इन्क्रीज इन इंट्रासेल्युलर कोहेजन इन ब्लॅक स्किन व्हाईल हायर लिपिड कंटेंट इन द ब्लॅक स्किन. ब्लॅक स्किन जो पीपल्स आहे त्यांच्यात जे लिपिडचं पर्सेंटेज आहे ते जास्त आहे. ऑल्दोज रिलेटिव्हली लिमिटेड डाटा आर अवेलेबल ऑन रेस. इंडिकेशन ऑफ द रेशियल डिफरन्स डू नॉट एक्झिस्ट